Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host Rashid, and as you can see, I'm streaming in my car. I'm waiting for my daughter to get off work, and I decided to come and sit a little early so that I can, because it's storming over on this side of town, and so I just wanted to talk to everybody and let's break down a little bit of the latest news and stuff like that. And also, I was on my way to try this new shaving stuff because I have sensitive skin, so there are times where I can't shave for weeks, and somebody put me up on something that may help me. So I'm on the way to pick it up to see if it'll help. I've tried everything, and nothing seems to help. But let's go into what's going on in the news today, everybody. I'm glad that you're here to join me. I hope that you're blessed. For those of you who are joining in the chat, it will be probably, let's see. Let me see something. Comments. I'm going to have to watch the comments from the StreamYard because for some reason I'm being blocked on YouTube on my other phone to try to get into my dashboard, and they're not allowing me to do it. So I'm going to have to be mindful of what's going on through. If you're putting comments down, it may be a delay because StreamYard is like maybe a 30 seconds to a minute delay from the YouTube chat room or whatever, but it eventually conveys it over to the StreamYard. So please forgive me for that. And I'm new at this, so you guys got to give your brother a break on this, all right? So as we're talking about what's going on in the news today, and we're talking about the things that are happening geopolitically and economically and politically, I want you to understand something. In the midst of this meeting that is taking place in Europe about security, because I want you to remember that word, security. As a matter of fact, since I'm talking to you, let's go to, hold on one second. Let's see. Meaning of security. All right. Now, according to the dictionary, the word security means, first of all, it says it's a noun, and it means the state of being free from danger or threat. The system is designed to provide maximum security against toxic spills. It's giving you a little sentence what the word is used in. It says a similar word is certainty or safe future. A thing deposited or pledged as a guarantee of the fulfillment of an undertaking or the repayment of a loan to be forfeited in case of default. Similar, guarantee, collateral, surety. So that's what we're looking at when you hear Joe Biden and you hear NATO Secretary Stoltenberg and when you hear all of the European leaders talk about security. One must understand the definition of security to really understand what they're talking about, because they can use that word, if you don't understand it, as a distraction, because everybody looks for security. Everybody wants security. Everybody is trying to maintain security, right? Everybody wants security of life, security of family, security of jobs, just to be stable, right? But not everybody is afforded that under the definition of security. So before we get into the security offered at the NATO summit, one must ask, is the world experiencing security? And the answer is no. Now, if we see and we know and we're living in a world that is destabilized and there is little to no security at all, one must go to the root of it and say, well, what lies at the root cause of the instability of the global scene of the world? Well, if we are honest, and if we do an honest appraisal and look inward, we can say, okay, is Latin America occupying European nations? Are Latin American nations making war against NATO nations? No. Are Asian nations making war against European and NATO nations? No. Are they occupying NATO nations? No. Are Middle Eastern nations occupying European nations and waging war against European nations? No. And then we turn to Africa. Are there any African military bases in Europe? Is Africa occupying Europe? Is Africa threatening to destabilize and wage war against Europe? No. We've gotten that, okay? Now, let us reflect and look in the mirror and ask the question, are there European bases and destabilization programs in Latin America? Sure there are. Are they in the Middle East? You know they are. What about in Asia? Of course there are. And no need to even mention Africa on this, because every NATO nation in some sort has a military contingent in Africa somewhere. So if the world is destabilized, excuse me, and these nations are meeting in Europe for security, how can they think that they can be afforded security while making everybody else around the globe insecure? They say they need a new European security architecture. There are no African or Latin American or Asian or Middle Eastern nation occupying Europe. But the case cannot, that same statement cannot be said in truth when we refer to European nations. So what lies at the root of this is Europe's arrogance, the Western world's arrogance and racism, and their desire and unquenchable desire to dominate, to rule, to dictate, and to occupy everybody outside of the spectrum of the garden, right? So we're talking on security now. This is something that must be addressed. Everybody likes to dance around this because they don't want to alienate a certain section of their subscribership because they get paid for that. They want to dance around this because they want to make friends. But listen to me, if you lie and you withhold pertinent information, to me, you are damaging what could be a good friendship. To me, you are misleading people and leading them down a path of destruction when you are informed about the true situation and refuse to enlighten them of what is going on, right? So true friends, out of love, tell the truth, right? If you love your family member, if they're doing wrong, what do? You confront them. You don't ignore it and act like it doesn't happen because the situation metastasizes and gets progressively worse. You must confront the problem head on and tell them where they're going wrong at and how you see them in a degenerative, demoralizing, and declining state. And only then, when you give them tough love, right, will some of them pull themselves from the brink of destruction. Well, I don't think NATO will do that. But regardless of that, we still have to be honest in our appraisal and our assessment of the situation, because nobody else is talking about these issues. They'll talk about Ukraine. They'll talk about America's stepping over Russia's red lines. They'll talk about Europe doing this, but they don't talk about why the world is in such a state. These people are megalomaniacs. They are hell-bent on ruling the world at all costs. And as I said in a previous show, there is no way that you can truthfully and honestly say that these people are not willing to kill everybody. One nuclear bomb, okay. 10 nuclear bombs, whoa, these people are serious. 100 nuclear bombs, my God, what are they plotting to do? 1,000 nuclear bombs, what the hell is on these people's mind? 5,000 nuclear bombs, that is preparation for the destruction of the world if you can't rule. That is why they hold these nuclear weapons. It is not for national security. It is securing that nation's position globally. And if you buck up against them, they have that insurance policy, and they'll go, like what you see with American NATO, they continue to overstep the bounds, international norms, diplomatic norms, military norms, because they're banking on the fact that maybe Russia and China may be rational. We'll play this game of being irrational. Nobody, we don't want it, they don't want it, but we're prepared to take the world to nuclear war. So with that in mind, how in the hell can the European nations talk about a new European security architecture while destabilizing the rest of the world? Huh? I'm asking. So only Europe is allowed to prosper and have security? Nobody talks about this stuff. Nobody. things have to be addressed, along with the constant overstepping of boundaries by America and NATO. Because if you don't delve into why they're doing this, you'll never understand where the world is headed. Okay? So, again, we're talking about, as a matter of fact, let me go to this real quick. Security. For those of you who are joining us, and again, thank you for giving me your time today. And as you see, I'm sitting out in my car waiting for my daughter. And I thought I'd chop it up with you guys because I haven't talked to you guys face to face in a minute. So we're addressing the NATO summit, what it means, what's behind all of these geopolitical motives and objectives that they're talking about in Europe. And the main issue is security. So according to the definition of the word security, it is a noun. It means the state of being free from danger or threat. It means certainty, safe future, guarantee, collateral, surety. Now, I want you to think about this. America and NATO has doubled down on their moves in North Africa, in the Sahel and in West Africa and all of this stuff. Macron had already openly said, and Joseph Borrell had alluded to, that they have to do this and they have to maintain a presence in Africa because Africa is vital to their national security issues. Now, I want you to think about this, okay, as we're talking about this, before I go any deeper. How in the hell can your presence in Africa be vital for your national security issues, but you disregard the vital security issues of the nations in Africa that you occupy illegally and refuse to leave? Huh? I'm asking you these things because nobody else will talk to you in love. Nobody will tell you these things in love. Nobody will address these issues in love. All right? So I'm telling you these things. Canada has bases in Africa. Germany has bases in Africa. Almost all of the European nations have bases in Africa, and the African nations have demanded them to leave, and they have yet to leave. So while they're talking about villainous or whatever, and how they're talking about the meeting between European nations in Europe, they ignore the security needs of Africa. They're ignoring the security needs of Eurasia. They're ignoring the security needs of Latin America. They're ignoring the security needs of West Asia, North Asia, Southeast Asia, and Asia proper. So how will Europe gain security or have a new security architecture while ignoring 9/10 of the population of the planet Earth? Because that's what it is. NATO does not even comprise 1/10 of the population of the planet Earth. And you're ignoring the majority, the will of the majority, and yet you say that you are for democracy. Right? How can you ignore the voice of the majority of the globe and at the same time talk about stable democracies when democracy is the will of the people? According to the West. Something to think on, huh? I see comments. We're going to talk on. Let me go into the comments for a minute. Random. I always mess your name up. I'm so sorry. Random Ezerg and Faisal. I'll share. I'm messing up because I can barely see these little words on my screen. So Faisal, please forgive me for butchering it because I can barely see the end. And good to see you too. Yeah, and Faisal, let me see if I can highlight what he just said. Let's see. All right. Oh, I can highlight it. I'm learning as I go. So it says, they don't give a damn about democracy. This is what I'm saying. It is for these meetings are for the elite to exercise domination across the globe at all costs. Listen, people talk about Hitler. And talk about how Hitler was the worst person in history because there's this belief that he killed between 2 and 6 million Jews. Now, I'm not going into that because I'm not getting kicked off YouTube for that. But listen, what about the Belgian king? What about those people who live and who killed millions of people because they had a bad day that day and they went into Africa and slaughtered millions of people? So a life is not equal because of the color? Huh? When we talk about security, if you don't have security for these over here, how in the hell can you expect to have security? If you're destabilizing over here, you're destabilizing over there, you're destabilizing back there, up there, down there, and over here, and screaming about security. Make that make sense. Listen, I was looking at it, a few newscasts and a few major alternative media channels a few days ago, and they were talking about the influx of refugees, right? And then somebody made it a point to say that not all refugees are equal. If you're from Africa, they allow you the boats to capsize. This goes hand in hand, brothers and sisters. For you who are listening, you have to give me a chance to lay the base, okay? And then you see how it all connects. Now, they were talking about how they allow those boats to capsize, and then now Europe is screaming about an influx of migrants. Listen to me good, because this is something that should be talked about. I talk about it on my show all the time. They talk about an influx of Arabs, an influx of African migrants that refuse to assimilate, right? They talk about how this is heavy on the European nations' economies, right? And they're talking about something must be done about this. Well, I agree with all of what they said of those four things. But now, let's get to the heart of the matter, okay? Because anybody can say some truth, but if you don't examine the truth, what good is it for? If you don't benefit from the truth that you're stating. Now, the Africans and the Arabs, which are pretty much one and the same, you know, but they are fleeing tyranny that was imposed upon them by the West. These dictatorships, who the hell you think put these people in power? It was the West that did that. Okay, you see that these nations that are not viable nations, that are unstable and stuff, and you see civil insurrection going on, and these people are fleeing from that. Who the hell do you think started that? Who did that? This is the ramification of hegemonic policies. You go in with your covert operation teams, you take out independent-minded leaders, you destroy the institutions that run and uphold governments, which keeps the nation cohesive and viable. And when these people are looking at the living conditions and they're running away from the situation that you imposed on them, and they're looking, as Burrell said, at the garden, they say, hell, they're the ones that did this to us, so they owe us. So they go over to the garden. Now you're mad and you're in your feelings and you're pissy because now it's an added debt on you. But you didn't say that when you bombed, you assassinated, you drone struck those people in the government. You didn't say that when you sit in covert operation teams and international corporations in to siphon off the mineral resources and the wealth there. But now that the people that are running from the condition that you fostered, you screaming about extra burden or cultural difference. You make that make sense. That is actually the rapist mad that the raped or the victim is demanding that you pay reparations for what you've done. Nobody talks about this because it alienates a large segment of people who think they know everything. Now, we know, and you can pull this stuff up. I'm not making this stuff up. Google this. All of NATO has operation teams in Africa. They have them in the Middle East. They're destabilizing. As a matter of fact, as I've told you over and over again, the United States has a huge buildup going on in the Middle East and North African region, and it's not being done out of the blue. It's being done because they expect war to come. People that I've talked to even confirm that there's a big military buildup, a deployment of troops, radars, weapons, missiles, tanks, warships, all of that in the MENA region, the Middle Eastern, North African region. While they got you looking at Ukraine, while they have you looking at the flare up in Asia, I've already known this, but people in the know had confirmed to me that the U.S., Israel, and some NATO nations are preparing for a big conflagration in that region of the world. Right now, again, are the people of Yemen occupying London? No. Are they occupying any of the European cities? No. Are they occupying Washington, D.C.? No. But we do know that America, Great Britain, or the UK, whichever one you want to call it, and Israel have soldiers, weapons, and equipment occupying strategic areas of the Yemeni nation, the areas that are fertile for food growth, and the areas that have massive untapped minerals and hydrocarbons. Right now, let's say if this is out of the ordinary. Well, if we look to Syria, the U.S., the UK, and the so-called coalition of the willing are occupying the wheat basket of Syria, the oil wells of Syria, and the gas wells of Syria. Well, let's look at it again. Let's see if this is just a two-off thing. You go to Libya, the nation that they bombed back into the Stone Age. Western corporations are siphoning off oil and gas for pennies on the dollar. They destabilized, divided, and bombed the hell out of Libya, and they're screaming about an influx of refugees coming to Europe. And this gets left out of the talk of the so-called learned people and all of the so-called pundits and prognosticators and geostrategists and politicians and geopoliticians. Right? I wonder why. Because sometimes when you've done ugly things, you don't want to look at yourself in the mirror. And this is one of the examples of them not wanting to look at themselves in the mirror. They want to point at everybody else. They have turned the camera because, remember, they own the bully pulpit. They have the most influential propaganda organs on the planet. And at the drop of a hat, when they give the propaganda organs the go-ahead, they flip the switch, and guess what happens? The victim becomes the aggressor, and the aggressor becomes the victim. Ukraine is the victim. Well, Ukraine may be a victim, but they are a willing participant in NATO's plans to not only put pressure on Russia, but to eventually wage war on Russia, organize Russia, and seize the assets and the mineral riches of Russia. But Russia was forced into this, right? And Russia is the aggressor. There's no justification for Russia doing this. Well, what is the justification for America 10,000 miles away investing $5 billion, according to Victoria Nuland, in the overthrow of the democratically elected government of Viktor Yanukovych of Ukraine, and then hiring NATO'S to burn people in buildings in Odessa, right? And then have mercenaries killing people who are protesting and having the people live in fear, so that NATO can then seize Crimea so that they can reduce Russia to a has-been power. Huh? What's democratic about that? What's just about that? Now think about this. $5 billion could have eradicated homelessness in America. Isn't that something? $5 billion could have helped so many people who are struggling with heating, with medicine, with health care, with paying their rent or their mortgage here in America. But Victoria Nuland, Joe Biden, and the rest of these clowns thought it best to invest money that the U.S. does not have in the state destabilization and the overthrow of the quote-unquote democratically elected government of Viktor Yanukovych in Ukraine. Let's say that again all together. The democratically elected government of Viktor Yanukovych in Ukraine. And now the peep of this is on NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, Fox News, and is rarely talked about in learned circles. Why? Because it shows a different light to American so-called benevolence. Okay, now let's see. There's something else up here. Let's see. Okay, let me highlight this too. He says, the United States has instigated the war that's going on in my country right now, Sudan, in which thousands have been. Man, what you talking about? I'm glad you brought that up. In Sudan. First of all, let's go back to let's go down a memory trip, okay? Let's go before this instigation of a civil insurrection and war going on in the Sudan. Now, decades beforehand, when they did a survey on Darfur, the Western world did a survey on Darfur, and they found that there were huge amounts of resources there. That's why they did this campaign, Free Darfur, Free Darfur. The West wanted to get their hands on that area right there of Sudan so that they can control the mineral resources and the hydrocarbons, and also have a foothold in that area of the world so that they can continue to keep Russia out, China down, and America and NATO in. That's what they wanted to do. Now, let's fast forward and look forward after that. When that wasn't working according to plan, they went into another spin and they caused tribal divisions or ethnic tensions, right? And then they moved to balkanize Sudan, to Sudan and South Sudan. This is what they did. Now, what's significant about that? The MSN has almost white cleaned this information here. But this is the truth, and if you do your research and your due diligence, you will find this. The U.S. using the UN as an instrument of global hegemony put pressure on the Sudanese government to then acknowledge that maybe a vote for independence or a vote to secede would be allowed at some future date. Google this stuff, okay? This is what happened. They put so much pressure on the Sudanese, and what America and the West, they do, they don't, if they can't get what they want, they put the pressure on the people economically and politically. They put pressure on them to keep them under wraps so that they can break the power of the government and call it a natural uprising when the people get so fed up with living in certain kind of conditions. This is what the U.S. does. So check this out. So after all of these meetings back and forth, they wanted this to happen. They wanted Israel to be able to have a base there. They wanted Sudan to have formal relations with Israel. They wanted the Sudanese to align with the West. And what America and the West does, they go into all of these societies pretending to help. They go into all of these countries pretending to want to strengthen civilian government structures and all that. What they're doing, they're searching for the disgruntled and the dissatisfied so that they can groom them and fund them, right? So that they can use them as Trojan horses and activate these people whenever they need them at a later date. And what happened was, and this came out by mistake, that as the U.S. and the Western world was putting on a lot of as they were putting on a lot of hold on one second, everybody. Hold on one second. This is my daughter. Hold on give me 1 second. I'll be with you. All right, that was my daughter. Anyway, but look, this is what happened. So man, I'm telling you, these people are so wicked. It's unreal. These people are wicked as hell. So they put pressure on the Sudanese to have a vote on secession, right? Do you know that at least 2 to 4 years before there was even an agreement by the recognized government of Sudan to allow for a future vote on the secession of Sudan, South Sudan. Do you know that Germany had already printed the money, the currency that would be used in South Sudan once they seceded from the Sudanese nation? Did you know that? The Germans had already printed the money. So that means the plan was already in place, right? They wouldn't have printed the money if they thought that if they didn't have a plan. If they didn't think everything was going according to plan. Let's see what Faisal says. He says, why did you think Obama split our nation? Bam! See, I'm on point. Listen to what he says. Why did you think Obama split our nation into the South? This where the oil is, and North, moreover, they imposed sanctions on us for over 27 years, and that resulted in millions of deaths. See, I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not making this up. I'm telling you what took place. So again, we go back to that thing, that little word, security. And they have been trumpeting this word security in Europe as the United States and all of these I would call separate entities that make up the most atrocious and the most vile and uncivil and sociopathic organization ever comprised, called NATO. They use this word security, but they use it in a term that they speak at you, but they speak over you. Security, a new European security architecture. Well, what the hell about? What about everybody else? They're not concerned about everybody else. This is what they're telling you. It's all about NATO. It's all about America and the European continent security. Everybody else be damned. That's what it's saying. So the word security, let's go back to this again. The state of being free from danger or threat. Now, if you one were to look at all of the places that America is at and has been, have those nations been, and are those nations free from danger or threat? No. Why? Because of U.S. and Western policies, right? And not only their policies, but their actions which follow their policies, right? So they're saying to hell with the security of Latin America. You know, we talk about this border issue here. So I got to jump on that real quick. I know my time is limited, and I'm going to come back and try to do another live stream either later this evening or tomorrow for sure. But listen, let's go to this border issue, because they talk about a lot of illegal aliens are coming in and stuff like this. And every nation does have the right to protect its borders. I'm not against all that, but I want to give it to you in the right perspective. Why are the people fleeing those nations? Huh? Yeah, it's a lot of racism down there also now. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. Now, but why are those people leaving their nation, trying to look for a better life in America? It is because of the systems, plural, and the leaders, plural, that were imposed upon these nations for decades by the U.S. and the Western world. So it takes decades to recover from that. It takes decades to start the healing from that. If you have imposed your dictates, because the Monroe Doctrine is a doctrine where America says that no other nation has the right to do this in this hemisphere. We control this hemisphere, and everybody else is less than us, and that's our backyard. That's their doctrine, right? Where they control the entire Western Hemisphere. That's America's doctrine. So if you are in control of the Western Hemisphere, and you impose Pinochet and all of these other leaders, Batista and all of these other leaders on these Caribbean and Latin American nations, how in the hell can you cry that the spillover is coming to you now? What I'm saying is there must be you must look within yourself now because there's so much going on. I'm not justifying uh, uh, coming across the borders. I'm just telling you, listen, these things are not happening in a vacuum. They're happening because something is making them happen. According to science, any action will receive an equal or greater reaction. And the problem now is that those policies that were enacted and that are still being enacted, they have a blowback effect. And the Western world can't take this, and here it is. Thus, the mentality of exceptionalism. This can happen to everybody else. This can happen to everybody else. But I'm America. We're Europe. We're the garden. It can't happen to us. It's not supposed to happen to us because we're exceptional and everybody else is beneath us. That's the mentality. So when you look at it on the surface and they say exceptionalism, that's what they're talking about. They actually believe that they are the exception to the rules that were laid at the base of the universe. They actually believe that they are given divine reign over the world and are able to, and should dictate everything and every policy to everybody, and that they know best on everything. If you do not believe what I'm saying, look around the globe. Look at every insurrection. Look at every government overthrow. Look at every civil war. Look at all of the trouble from Thailand to Panama, from Panama over to Sudan, from Sudan to Nigeria, to Yemen, to Eritrea, to Somalia. Look at all of these. Look at Europe. America and NATO has a hand in every last one of them. Every last one of them. And if you think I'm lying, pull up something to refute what I'm saying. They have their hands in every last one of them because they believe that they can dictate any and everything. Hence, they are meeting in Europe for a new European security architecture. Not global architecture, not global security architecture, not admitting that the way you ruled, the way that you impose your laws and your dictates on us have led the world towards war and destabilization. That's not an admission. They're not admitting that. They're saying that, oh, yeah, it's destable. Yeah, and we're moving towards war. They won't tell you why and who's the cause. They'll say, yeah, we're moving toward that, but they don't go towards a peace initiative for the globe. It is predicated on America and Europe, the very causers, the ones who cause global instability. You make that make sense. Huh? Let's see. Let's go to Faisal says the current conflict was instigated because our military, you better believe that. Let's read that again. The current conflict was instigated because our military has had an agreement with the Russian Federation to have a naval base on the shores of the Red Sea in the city of Port Sudan. I have done multiple shows talking about that. I've even shown the map and the waterways and why this is strategic for America, because you got to understand, Sudan is here, right? I can't show up here, right? In Africa, over this way, right? And it is by the Red Sea, and it is also close to going through the Red Sea into the Mediterranean. Down here you have Djibouti, down here. Let me see. Yeah, down this way. And the Chinese have a base there. This is why America, the U.S., and Israel are occupying a Yemeni island in that region. They are trying to maintain power, and they said they don't care who dies, how much destruction is caused. They will maintain hegemony at all costs. Now, if that's not the mind of a lunatic, if that's not the mind of a megalomaniac, a sociopath, or someone that is absolutely, totally psychotic, tell me what is one. Tell me. Huh? Just tell me. I'm telling you, there are so many things going on, and you guys it's raining real bad. It's lightning bad, and I'm out here in the car, so if you hear a lot of thundering, that's because you know the weather is bad right here. But again, we're looking at this. I just want. I'm talking to you all. Matter of fact, let's go to it. Let me see if I can play a little clip for you guys. Um, let me see. Listen, let's go back to this right here. I want to go back to this clip here, since we're on this subject. Listen to what is being said. Okay, listen to what is being said. It's only a minute. But I want you to listen to this, and then we're going to go to another clip because I want you to see what the lunacy of American and Western policies. Okay, let's go here real quick. Let me see if I can play it on this.
China is the world's largest industrial economy, in my view, and Iran, which has been under sanctions, but still China treats Iran as an equal. And this is very, very important today. On the global dimension, as your guest said, that we have a unilateral system which is now has doomed humanity to failure. It has doomed itself economically, socially, and culturally to failure. And there's need for a new system in the world where nations are treated equally, but also can cooperate for mutual benefit, as the Chinese say, a community of a shared future for all mankind, where you have a new system. I mean, there's a fact that the economic power in the world has shifted to the east, with China at its core. And the going east is no longer a matter of taste, it's a necessity for many nations. But this does not mean that we should have a new Cold War or a new split world, but that the West should learn the lessons of the past 30 years of wars and interventions and destruction, and how China has managed through the Belt and Road Initiative, through this friendly relationship with other nations, to build a completely new system.
So you hear them saying that there's a need for something new. You hear the people talking about there is a need for something outside of the realm of the dictates of the West. This is unacceptable by the West. That's why they're doubling and tripling, quadrupling down on failed policy. This is why they are having a meeting in Europe right now. It is no coincidence that this meeting comes after Iran was accepted into the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. This means that the majority of the world now resides with China and Russia. It is no coincidence that on top of this, there's open talk of a global currency outside of American dictates and policy. And now they're talking about at the BRICS meeting coming up in August that there'll be some official announcement of more nations moving outside of the dollar. Do you actually believe that this meeting in Europe is truly all about Ukraine? No, it's about the policy failures of the West. America tried to send Blinken to China to try to somehow cower China, or if that didn't work, bribe China, or something like that. That didn't work. Joe Biden lashed out. Then Blinken did a double take and said we support Biden, and that's all what we're all thinking. Then you have Janet Yellen going over there begging. That didn't do anything for America. And then she thought by offering India all of these technological gadgets that could, quote unquote, leapfrog India's technology in her military sphere to try to catch up with China, that this in itself would be something that would offset China and offset China's rise. All of these things are death by 1,000 cuts, because India is playing both sides towards the middle to benefit from both sides. But she knows that her future lies, if she has a future, it lies with the East. It lies with the global South. Right? The same with Erdogan. You see him, what he's doing? Nobody really knows what's going on with this man at this moment. Before I can really talk on that, I'm gonna have to sit back and I'm gonna have to watch the next couple moves over the next week or so, and then I can analyze and tell you exactly what is what. But right now, a lot of people are doing they're prognosticating and they're giving you their opinion without what's more likely for them. But I like to really watch, like in chess. You don't look at just the move that is being made. You look at the position of all of the pieces on the chessboard, and you look at how they're being set up for moves later down the road. Okay, and so that's what we should be doing. Now let me go to something. I want you to listen to this part right here. Okay.
America is showing itself to be the hypocrite of all hypocrites here. America is the country that is telling the world that it supports free trade and competition and free enterprise, and yet it is the single biggest block to free competition and free enterprise that exists on the earth. America has all of these countries under sanctions because it wants to use economics to dictate politics to other countries. It also wants to dictate culture and ethnic relations between nations which have been friends among themselves and lived and coexisted in peace for generations and centuries and even millennia until America came and set them at each other's throats. America has inherited the English curse of divide and conquer in the interest of their empire. And the world is now smartening up to this. We cannot be allowed to be forced to fight among ourselves. I was here in Serbia during the crippling sanctions that America used to try and crush Serbia. They had no effect. The people banded together. I was in Japan when America was sanctioning Japan, and I was advising the Prime Minister's office. They did not cow Japan. Japan continued to produce. I have been in Canada when American interests imposed sanctions on our wood industry. America is the global bully. And as the nations of the world wake up to this fact, the bully, when it's outnumbered by all countries in the earth, will fail and fall. And this is how empires fall. This is the fall of America. They, by sanctioning the world, are sanctioning themselves.
This is the fall of America. They recognize it. I recognize it. You recognize it. It's just the average Joe is taking time to recognize that we're in the fall. Why do you think that America has become unhinged? Why do you think that she continues to overstep the norms? Why do you think that she keeps pushing? Some of this I blame on Russia. Some of it. Because if Russia would have sucked her in her nose economically, politically, and even, quote unquote, militarily, some of this could have been brushed back. But that's the only language that a bully knows. If you bully me, I bully you back, and you realize that you're in a tussle, that'll give you pause and second thought of getting in a tussle with me, right? Now, sanctions, he said. This is the instrument that the United States uses to cower people. Remember when we were just talking about security? Now let's look at what is opposite of that security. Sanctions cause destabilization. Sanctions, a threatened penalty for disobeying a rule or law. Stop right there. That definition right there is what we need. A what? A threatened penalty for disobeying a rule or law. Now, America and the West are so arrogant. I told you that if I can't rule, I'm killing everybody. That's their mind state. So you can't say that is not, because why the hell would you be deploying nuclear submarines to the Korean Peninsula? Why would you start deploying nuclear submarines to Australia? Why would you deploy bombers that are capable of striking Russia with nuclear weapons to the Nordic nations or to other European nations, unless you think that there's a high probability of nuclear confrontation? Now, if this is the case, is Russia deploying them to Mexico and Canada and Cuba? Because to be honest with you, if I was Russia, I know it's not needed today, but as a show of force, I would deploy mine to Cuba. I would deploy mine to Venezuela, to Panama. If you can do it, I'm gonna do every step you take. I'm gonna take two. If you are not concerned about the national security of my nation and my people, why should I care about yours? And if you buck up against me, then we're going head to head. You're not going to ignore the security of my family because you got these crazy designs in your head that you got to dominate and you got to rule and you got to be the dominant power, the dominant economic power, the dominant trade power, the dominant financial power. You got this stuff stuck in your head because you are a lunatic. Right? And there are ways to deal with lunatics. Now, back to this definition. A threatened penalty for disobeying a law or a rule, right? A threatened penalty. I told you they believe that they are the gods of the world. If I got a grievance against Sudan, I'm going to sanction Sudan. That's not enough now. And if you continue to trade with Sudan, even though you might have brotherly and love for Sudan, and you might have historical ties to Sudan, right? and you may be in the region. Now you can't pick your nation up out from being on the border with Sudan and put it in Europe. So you have to do trade with Sudan, but then the European Union and the United States say, well, if you do that, we'll sanction you too. So now you got a beef with Sudan, and you want to bring me in. I'm a friend of Sudan, or I'm a friend of Algeria, or I'm a friend of Egypt, or I'm a friend of Libya. Now, because you got beef with it, you want to bring me in your beef on your side, even though it's detrimental to my national security and my way of doing things. Right? That's crazy, right? Now I tell you what, these people are crazy as hell. Now listen, my daughter is on her way out. My daughter is on her way out, her and her co-worker. They're on their way out. Listen, we're going to try to do another live stream later on today, or if not today, for sure we're going to be doing it tomorrow, everybody. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me. Hey, listen, become a channel member, hit the like and subscribe. Your comments will disappear because I don't know what's going on with YouTube at this moment. But we're going to keep stepping. We're going to keep doing it. On that note, know that I love you. But always remember that the true and living God will always love you best. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. Thank you.